Since 2003, this is the Sports Source, East Tennessee's #1 sports talk show.
Brought to you by Junk Be Gone and the Garza Law Firm.
With your host, John Pennington. The Sports Source starts now.
Good Sunday morning and welcome into the show. We appreciate you joining us today. Midsummer kind of a program, so we're going to be looking big picture. We're going to take the 10,000-foot view of the UT football program. Where did things go wrong? Can things be fixed? That's our main topic. And as we start off here, I also want to say thanks to the folks here at WATE because, a few months ago we came off Facebook Live, but now we are going to be seen on WATE.com, so you can let your friends and family who are out of town know that we're on WATE.com. All right. This first segment of our program is brought to you by Junk Be Gone, which you saw there for a second. I'm always talking about how I use Junk Be Gone at my house for spring cleaning. But if you run a business, these folks can do wonders for you, getting rid of old furniture and equipment, shredding documents. Visit junkbegone.biz today to learn more about what they can do for your business. All right. Let's welcome in the panelists for today. We have Bob Hodge, longtime sports writer, longtime member of our panel here. Bob, thanks for being here.
Glad to be here.
From WNML AM and FM, you can hear Josh Ward Monday through Friday, noon to 3. Josh, thanks for being here.
Thank you, John.
And right down there from GoVols247.com, you can read Ryan Callahan anytime you want. It's not just Monday through Friday. It's anytime he's there. Ryan, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
All right. As I said off the top, SEC Media Days are coming up in a couple of weeks, so it's midsummer. Football season's about to kick off. We always do a couple of big picture items each summer. This is one of those today. So we're going to talk about I'll tell you what it is. It's the conversation that so many fans discuss amongst themselves. I get lured into it all the time. I know you guys get into these things as well. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to have this conversation in front of you on television and see how much debate we can create. I want to start with how things went off the rails, and then we'll eventually get to how they can be fixed. Will they be fixed? But let's talk bad first and get that out of the way. There are a million contributing factors as to why Tennessee went from BCS championship in 1998. You've got the same team back in 99, so people are thinking, we're going to repeat. You're competing for a title in 2001. It looks like it's going to be happy sailing for years and years and years. Instead, it has been 19 straight years without a top 10 finish. You have not finished in the top 10. You have not been to a major bowl since that 2001 team. And I would venture to guess there's not a single Vol fan that would have taken that bet had you laid that out to them on January 1st, 2002. So my question for each of you, and I'll start with Ryan, number one reason that things went south for the Tennessee football program after the 98 national championship team.
I will point the finger at other people and say it's other teams. I think it has as much to do with what happened around Tennessee as it did with what Tennessee did wrong. We saw Philip Fulmer's recruiting drop off a little bit here and there. Not every single year were they signing a top 5 class. And then you got to the point where Georgia popped back up with Mark Richt. Alabama obviously became better and then a lot better with Nick Saban. Obviously, you've seen other teams pop up since then. Ohio State's become stronger since the 90s. They were already strong. Now they're one of the top 5 programs in the country year in and year out. So you're seeing a lot of things around Tennessee geographically and in the SEC just make things tougher for them. I think that's the biggest thing. When they were at their best in the 90s, they went into Georgia and got top players. They went into the Carolinas and got top players. They went into Virginia and got top players. They even went up to Ohio and got guys like Peerless Price. They went to Alabama and got guys. You can't do that anymore, and that's the biggest thing. I think Tennessee was able to go get top players all over the country. They were battling mostly Florida in the SEC, not Georgia, not Alabama, not Auburn, not even LSU. That's changed since then. So I think that's the biggest thing, the SEC and the teams around them.
And you've also, what you're talking about there, one of the other programs that has popped onto the map here of late and become just dominant happens to be in the SEC footprint, and that's Clemson. So right about the time that Florida State took a step back, and you would think, okay, you're no longer, now Clemson takes their slot. So Ryan believes, and we'll discuss back and forth, but Ryan believes that part of the main issue, the number one issue, is what went on around Tennessee. Josh, do you agree with that? Is he absolving Tennessee of all their sins, though? Where are you going with the number one reason for Tennessee's demise?
Well, Ryan did take my number one, but I have a number two that's ready, and I can come back in-house.
So this will be a lie.
Right. The next closest to me would be what has gone on in-house, and that starts at the very top when you look at the presidential turnover that has continued on year after year, it seems like, then the athletic director, and then the head football coach, and the lack of connection that used to be in place. And you never had the right structure in place if you're trying to either stay in front of or, it turns out, catch up with some of these other programs that did have the right leadership and did have really strong head coaches in place. Trying to then catch up with them when you can't even keep your own house in order has continued to be a problem for Tennessee.
Well, it's one thing if you've got, people always talk about the wheel of coaches you've had here. You've also had that wheel of presidents, the wheel of athletic directors,
Yep.
chancellors, and it's hard to get everyone on the same page. And even when they spend a year telling us how everybody's on the same page now, you wind up with the NCAA about to dance on your grave. So, yeah, I think that has also been a contributing factor. Those are two. Let's see if you have one that's different, or do you agree with these guys? One of these guys?
I think you're both right. And then I'll add in Lane Kiffin. I think the wheels came off for Tennessee about the time Lane Kiffin decided to go back to USC because USC couldn't hire a football coach. And then in full panic mode, Tennessee hires Derek Dooley, which makes absolutely no sense. And then you kind of got a little stable with, I thought, with Butch Jones. And then everybody just goes nuts every time he says something. For some reason, he didn't click with the fans. And you go 9-4, you go 9-4. You come up short on your expectations, then the wheels come off. You have a long pass at Florida that beat you in the last few seconds. And so I think it all traces back to if Lane Kiffin had stayed. You might have a whole world of other problems if Lane Kiffin stays. But Lane Kiffin leaves, you panic hire Derek Dooley, and then I think you panic fire Butch Jones. And so it has something. He's right, you're right. And when you get to the coaching cycles, if you would have had maybe 4 years of Lane Kiffin and he doesn't get on NCAA probation, and I think he was probably a fairly decent football coach with fairly decent staff, you might not sink to the lows. And I just don't think the highs that you got back to under Butch Jones were able to overcome that, because I think two words, Josh Dobbs. If Butch Jones doesn't have Josh Dobbs, is he as good as he is?
Yeah, it doesn't finish the
But
top
I
25
think that
twice.
all the woes go back, not to firing Fulmer, but Lane Kiffin leaving, and since then you've just been lurching from one place to the next.
Okay, I think lurching is a good way to put it. All right, if we had to pick those three, you agree with Ryan. So we got two votes. Yeah. We got 2 votes for.
And I agree with Ryan too.
What's your number one, though? You agree with that's the number one?
No, I don't, because I think if Tennessee would have been able to keep its house in order, then everybody gets better. Now, maybe you're not 11-1 every year, but I mean, come on, let's face it. You haven't been competing with the mediocre teams. So even though I think Ryan is partially right, the Georgias, the Alabamas, the Clemsons getting better, yeah, that has something to do with it. But, year in, year out, you're not competing with Missouri. You have the last couple of years. Maybe South Carolina has been beating you a little bit. Vanderbilt's been beating you. So it's not just that.
Kentucky came in and kicked your tail.
And then I think it also, I think all of that has something to do. But I'm just going straight football. If Lane Kiffin stays, maybe the road to where we're at right now is a little smoother and doesn't have quite the incredible lows that we've seen.
All right, I've got a different one that I'll come back, and I think it trumps all of you. I'll throw it out next, and we'll debate more about these views on where it went wrong. And then as we go through this, we'll talk about which hiring or firing was the worst and had the longest ramifications. We'll talk about what are the biggest obstacles moving forward and how you overcome those obstacles. We'll talk about what is the reality for Tennessee football. What is Tennessee football supposed to do? And would it be good enough for Josh Heupel if he met that? Would people say, yeah, that's what we are? Hint, no. And then we'll also talk about, will Tennessee ever get back to that regular level, the level that they maintained for years and years and years? All that to come on the Sports Source. Come on back after this break.